I'm Ben Andriazzi.
And I'm Jennifer Storm.
We've spent our careers fighting for victims
and standing up for survivors of sexual abuse.
On Justice Interrupted, we have honest, often difficult conversations
with survivors, advocates, and experts fighting for change. Because justice should never be delayed and never interrupted. Welcome back to Justice Interrupted. I am one of your hosts, Jennifer Storm.
And I'm Ben Andriazzi, another host.
Yeah. So Ben, I'm really excited. Today we have a very special guest, someone who is not just a fierce advocate and public servant, but I consider to be a dear friend. So today we are joined by Pennsylvania State Senator Katie Muth, one of the fiercest voices, in my opinion, for accountability and systemic change in the state of Pennsylvania. Katie has consistently shown up for survivors, for children, and for communities who have just felt ignored by systems that were really set up to protect them. And kind of getting behind that curtain and realizing that those systems are epically failing in many ways. She's also been a leading voice on issues regarding institutional accountability, transparency, and legislative reform in Pennsylvania, particularly as it relates to survivors of sexual abuse and the barriers to justice. But also I could name probably 12 other incredible areas that she's working on for marginalized individuals in the state. So Katie, thank you so much for being here, for your time. And for being just like such a great friend and supporter in that building, because that's not necessarily always an easy thing to occupy. We always like to just start off the conversation by asking you why, right? What's your why? What made you look at the legislature and think, you know, I could do that. I want to do that. I want to become a state senator in Pennsylvania.
So I feel very old. I'm in my 8th year in office, which seems so weird to say because I feel like I just got elected. In 2017, after we had a pretty rough 2016 presidential election, it became very clear to me that government was just completely flawed. And I didn't know a lot about government. I didn't know a lot about state government. I always voted. But beyond that, I was just like the regular human doing my thing. And I worked in sports medicine and healthcare. And so one piece of my why is I genuinely believe everyone should have access to high quality healthcare, no matter who they are, no matter what their income is. And I worked in the NFL. I've worked in low income high schools. I've worked in Division III, Division I athletics, and all of them have different healthcare systems. And I will assure you that it's a huge barrier to having good health care if you're on state Medicaid. And so I became very good at negotiating knee brace prices and physical therapy copays and things. But that was part of my why. And paying for health insurance is incredibly expensive. And so I'm not from a wealthy family. I don't have any political roots. And I was really like, why is this so expensive? Like, what is the deal? Mm-hmm. Then you pull back layers of onion of just pay to play, the Insurance Federation, all the things that make healthcare completely just unaffordable. So that was one piece. The personal piece for me was realizing, I had a hard time with the election of Donald Trump. Not from the getting into political debate, but just from being a survivor. And I had really not talked about being a rape survivor ever until 2016. And so that was hard. That was a big, but it was also such a relief to say it. And if you remember around that same time, the horrific rape of the woman that was at Stanford. And I just remember reading, something she had written and it had been published. And I was like, it's okay. Like, shame is a liar. This isn't your fault. And so knowing that so many people support, and to be clear, there are sexual predators on both sides of the aisle. It's not isolated to one political party. And, it just really made me realize that we need more women in government. And Pennsylvania was and still is at the bottom, not the bottom, but we were the worst state in the nation for women in government at all levels. And so I probably naively decided to run for Senate, not realizing all the intricacies, but maybe that was a good thing because it didn't, stop me. But someone had asked me, they said, you should run for this seat, because all these local seats had flipped in 2017. And I was like, sure. And I didn't know who my state senator was until I ran against them. So it was kind of like, well, whatever, right? And so no one thought I would win, nobody. But my why kept me going, in that like somebody needs to be there to be the voice and have that experience, and not just be, another person that's in line from a political family, or another lawyer from a law firm that never practices law, but just, is a lawyer and can be a legislator. And I think that, when I came into office, there was some others that got elected the same year that were different. And I think that has moved the needle. And actually, the 5 of us that were elected in 2018, we introduced some of the legislation you referred to at the beginning about statute of limitations. And, I had read about that battle, but I hadn't been under the dome to be a part of it. So it was the first thing I decided to take on. And that's how I met you.
Yeah, I mean, we had been fighting for legislative reform around statute of limitations for a very long time. I think my first rally was in maybe 2012. But then, as we know, in 2016, the Me Too movement just kind of cracked open this conversation. And in Pennsylvania, we've always been good prospectively, right? Like, we'll change the laws to modify what happens for future survivors. But the state has always been really resident to do what we all know is the most important, impactful legislation, which is this look back window, right? Opening up the statute of limitations. And then obviously we had some really high profile cases. I met Ben on the Jerry Sandusky case. We had the Catholic Diocese report come out, multiple reports come out. And so then we became like the epicenter and the face of this issue. And disturbingly, it's been 10 years. And we are now probably one of the few states, at least in our region, one of the only states in our region that has not passed this reform. So can you kind of give us like a little bit of your history walking into that seat? Because I do remember I worked very closely with your predecessor. Yeah, that's the right way to say that, right? Predecessor. Thank you. I worked very closely with your predecessor, and he was a fierce advocate for this specific issue. So it was nice to see the seat flip and have you come in and immediately just like take that mantle and then really lift it for us. So thank you for that.
No, I think when I came in, I didn't really know what I was coming into in general, but that issue was such a learning curve for me in terms of the players in the game. And frankly, like how, I don't want to say how things work because they don't work, how things go or happen in Harrisburg. So as you remember, trying to get any of this to move even prospectively was insanity. And there, between the people in the House of Representatives and legislation over there, I really was like, why is this, what is the deal? Like, why is this so incredibly hard? And not knowing that the Catholic Conference and the Insurance Federation, all these players were like behind the scenes pulling on strings. And I just remember I thought I was, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go meet with Joe Scarnati and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to tell him, like, this is my story and this is, why I have empathy for this issue and why I think it deserves to be not just acknowledged, but changed, right, legislatively. And I'll never forget that meeting. It was very eerie. And it was him and Drew Crompton in a very long conference table in his office. And it was like cold heart behind those eyes. And at that point, I knew I had to take a different approach. Like, I wasn't dealing with a human being that like cared at all. And frankly, didn't have any desire to do anything on that issue. And so that's really when it had to become more of a battle versus a civil conversation, because I knew that nothing was going to change. And so I do want to credit Senator Lisa Baker. And I know you watched me go through my first disappointment moment when I thought I could, amend something and make it be, so much better. And I didn't realize at the time when we were changing the age range for the prospective legislation that it was such a big deal for her to even get her side of the aisle to go to the age of 25.
Yeah.
And obviously I credit survivors, Lakeisha, people that came and testified repeatedly, just having to reiterate the horrible stuff they've been through, right? And so um, it took me a while to really be grateful for her efforts, because I was just like, what the, like, why can't it be, why does it matter when you're sexually assaulted? Why is the age so such a sticking point for people? I mean, there are people in nursing homes that are sexually assaulted. Like, it's like, what is the problem here? Um, and so I think that for me, it was really an eye opener of like, this process is so flawed. And there might be people behind it that really don't want it for reasons that I may never know or understand, but it's clear there's no changing minds and hearts of many of those people. So maybe that's why they have to change who's sitting in that seat, if we can't change their minds and hearts. But I think it still hangs heavy for me. I just saw some of the survivors that I first met when I met you in March. They were in the Capitol, and it's like unfinished business. It's unfinished. Like, it needs to get done. And because it sends such a hollow message of like, Pennsylvania doesn't care what happened to you.
Senator Muth, can you talk a little bit? Senator Muth, can you talk a little bit about how the sausage gets made? Because a lot of our audience, they're not political people. They don't understand how the process moves. And being in the legal world, one would think that I would have an understanding of how it gets made, and quite frankly, I didn't. I was astonished when I learned that even though a certain political issue might have the majority of members of the House and Senate who favor it and would actually vote in favor of this issue, that's not going to save the day for that specific issue, because you must have leadership who's willing to put the issue on the floor to be voted upon. So can you talk about those dynamics and really how a bill gets advanced and what's required to get a bill off the ground and actually voted upon?
Sure. So I think just as like a 101, and I'm not being political, it's just the way the either chamber works. Whichever party has the majority of members, meaning more members than the other side, is the majority party. They control everything. So they control when we come into session to vote, our schedule. They also determine which bills are voted out of committee. So even if you are the chair of a committee, I can say this confidently about the majority party currently in the House and currently in the Senate. So the Senate is Republican majority for now 30 years. The House, Democrats have the majority. It's not like you can run your committee like the chairperson. You often have to, not often, you have to get permission to run bills out of your committee. Because if not, there's members in your committee that may be upset that they have to take tough votes. This happens more in the House because the numbers are it's a slim margin of a majority. And so there's a lot of corporate Democrats in Pennsylvania. I'll just be very blunt there's a lot of corporate politicians, I should say, which is a huge problem. And because those are the voices, donors are in the ears of these individuals. And it's hard for me to understand. I don't take any corporate PAC money. Zero. I'm like a unicorn in the legislature, and I'm also in a very purple district. So it's frustrating for me because I'm like, it's not like my district is this bright Democratic, easy win, but I have a lot of independent voters, and I tell the truth. I'm consistent, and that's, I don't need the Catholic Conference and electric companies and gas companies cutting me checks to get reelected, right? I've won without that. And a lot of legislation gets stopped because of the lobbying of donors or entities that make money off of the government, or make more money when the government has less regulation. So I think that's a big piece of it, is the influence of donors. So we have no campaign finance laws at the state level in Pennsylvania. There are people that turn in their reports like months and months late. If it were me, I'd get like a $250 fine every day. They like watch every move I make. I've like double filed the same check, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't mean to do that. Like, it's a system error. It's a $500 fine. But there's just not checks and balances, and there's no caps on campaign contributions. So if a giant supporter of an issue, they get a check you all both could cut me a check right now for $50 million and it's perfectly legal, which is insane, right? So there's that piece of how this impacts the process. So a bill, I'll say this for the Senate, a bill in the Senate will not get a vote unless the majority of almost all of the members of the Republican caucus support it. Mm-hmm. You will not see a bill that's like, 10 Republicans and the rest Democrats. That's like never happened. There might be a bill where like 4 Republicans vote no with some of us Democrats who hold the line and vote no on really bad stuff instead of just compromising. Or there's a weird vote where it's like me, Senator Lindsey, like the progressive Dems, there's like 3 of us. And then, Doug Mastriano and Scott Hutchinson vote no. And people are like, what is this bill? What happened here? What a weird like thing. And it's like, because it was like a tax code thing, and they have a way different philosophy on what we feel about taxes. But so the way it goes is the majority party decides what comes out of committee, they actually decide where your bill goes. So yesterday, my staff and I were talking about, we have a data center moratorium bill. And we're like, we wonder what committee this is going to go to. So we're like sitting there trying to figure that out. And they also have like 10 or 12 days to send your bill to a committee. And I assure you, when it's a Republican bill, that is out in 24 hours. Katie Muth bill, it is the 13th day. So there's a lot of that kind of weird stuff that happens. But that's part of this process, right? They run the show. If the majority party runs the show, they dictate all of that. And their leadership are the ones going to the other side of the building and saying, well, if you run this, we'll run this, right? So it's a little bit of like a bartering, especially now that the Democrats have the majority in the House. And so we're rank and file members are not privy, to those discussions. You sort of start figuring it out. But it is very much controlled by 2 members of each caucus and the governor's office. And these are conversations that are not public. These are conversations that are not documented in a meeting. And you find out, especially as we head into budget, what the wheeling and dealing is in terms of what has been decided upon as worthy of being part of a deal. And this issue, I think, there's just not enough heat on it. It had a lot of heat before. Mm-hmm. And now I think, there needs to be a reinvigoration of rage but that's hard, right? That's hard to ask these same people who've been there for over 10 years, begging for relief and to be seen and to be heard. And I think the worst part is like to tell your whole story and then have nobody move on it. It's like, so I think, the bartering and who controls what. And again, if the leadership in the Senate is beholden to the Catholic Conference or the Insurance Federation, it's dead on arrival. I mean, that's just, I think it's disappointing. I'll say this, and I'm sure someone listening will be upset, but I think it was hard for me to understand how this didn't happen, how this hasn't gotten done after the Attorney General, that's now our governor, really pushed on this issue. And now it's just like as if it never happened. It's very it's hard, right? It's just like why this isn't even like a fiscal thing, right? This isn't like a revenue thing where people are like, we can't, it's nothing to do with taxes, has nothing to do with like any of these things that people get really riled up about, except for the Insurance Federation.
Well, and I think also it's the exposure too, right? There was so much exposing going on, and it was on both sides of the aisle. And I know this because I was smack in the middle of it. But the way that the Senate was able to wield power and control, and the tactics that were used, we were political footballs. I mean, I lost my job on the Senate floor as a direct result of advocating for these issues. And so, it's disgusting the way that survivors have been weaponized and used in this process. And to your point, I'm so grateful that so many of them continue to go to the Capitol, but it's also exhausting.
It is exhausting. It is, and it's like, if there isn't the will of those, like I told you, the ones that actually sit down and have this conversation, yeah, it's almost like it has to be made into an election issue, right? To get people to move a little. You're seeing some people dance right now. It's sort of interesting to watch on the whole data center thing, and utility bills are crazy, right? So like these are people that have never been remotely flustered about their job security. And it's like, we need that same or similar momentum to say, like, we're not, the public isn't going to let this go on anymore. And maybe that's a moment now to connect that. Is it's just a difference between right and wrong. And if this happened to you, you would want that, right? And I think there's a whole new wave of people paying attention to government that are not, loyal to one party or the other. I see it in my own community. The people that I've met are, newly engaged. They don't know about this issue. So maybe, giving a little refresher and how long it's been, it would be really important. And you've heard the rhetoric on the Senate floor. We're here to protect women and girls. And I'm like, oh, you are not here to do that. You cherry pick how you decide you want to protect people. And yes, you did lose. You were a part of a deal and a bartering. Your role in government was bartered away, right? Mm-hmm. It was completely bartered away
by all three, right?
But all three, right? And so I think it's an important thing to note that if government can do that to you, don't forget it can do it to anyone else, right? And so it is a very cutthroat, non-common sense building. Like it's just everything defies what you would think. The regular person's like, wait, what? This happens how? And you're like, this is how this all happens. Like it's not what you would expect, and it's certainly not efficient. We're one of the most or one of the least efficient legislatures in the country, despite being full time. We have a lot of bills that never get a vote, right? And so this is one that's like I consider low hanging fruit. Like this shouldn't be something that's been dragged out this long.
So for years, the bill to amend the statute of limitations and open up a window has passed through the House in Pennsylvania, and it has stalled out in the Senate. Do you believe, or can you comment as to whether you believe there is enough Senate support for a window bill in Pennsylvania to have it actually pass?
I do.
And
Ben, the constitutionality argument, like I can't even begin to stress my frustrations on this, because it's like, then like pass it. And then if that's what the court's for, if that's how that's going to go, then let it be heard and like have that, right? Other states have already done this. Like there's precedent now. So like that excuse was so terrible. And then, the whole, it never got on the ballot thing. And then no one cared after that. And it was just like, I do feel like, I don't want to go that route of putting it on the ballot anymore, because I think it was just a complete stunt.
Yep.
So that people didn't have to make the toughest vote in their mind. Right. And then it didn't happen. Why? I mean, I still have feelings on that. Like, why didn't that happen? Like, I don't believe in coincidences in Harrisburg. I'm sorry. I just don't. So I think that it's one of those situations where it's like, you have the votes for it, do it. Like, and if the Catholic Church wants to, light money on fire on legal fees, then like go for it. But these people are worth it, right? These are people. These are humans in our community. They deserve to have this, opportunity to seek justice, and to not just be this written off thing that, so sorry, and just forgotten about, as if, because again, it allows this narrative that there was no accountability. None.
For those people who aren't directly impacted by this specific issue, I think it should be a wake up, and it should be scary for people in Pennsylvania to know that there's a bill out there that has support in the House. It has support in the Senate. And there are a few power players who, for most likely political reasons related to special interests, are refusing to allow, or even the Pennsylvania gives people, one or two or a handful of people, that much power and control that they can dictate the agenda as to what gets voted upon. I mean, what if this was an issue of, let's just take this to the extreme, like national, well, or I'll say, I know this is state government versus national, but let's just say that these same principles applied nationally. And this was a national security issue. Mm-hmm. And everybody in the House and everybody in the Senate thought that the security of citizens was at risk. And there were two or three people who, had a special interest in this issue and decided that they didn't want to bring it to the forefront and not even allow it to be voted upon. Well, like taking that one step further, I mean, potentially this is a security interest for children.
100%.
This is
for any institution that we know, right? Institutions in general, some have a bigger track record. But to your point, like this is a public health and safety issue. 100% it is. I mean, I went to Penn State. I know. The Sandusky thing is one thing. There's a whole other can of worms there on campus rape statistics and all sorts of stuff. So like, if you want to send your kid to camp or to college or to school, like you should be worried about this. Like you should be. Like you're 110% correct.
We can't change the criminal laws retroactively to identify perpetrators. Yep. The only way we can change the laws, is civilly. And by doing that, we're able to expose and bring forward all these people who have hidden for many, many years behind closed doors. And now we can expose them and protect kids, because we know these types of people are trying to gain access to kids every day. They're signing up to be volunteers. They're signing up to be coaches. They're signing up to be teachers because that gives them access to children.
Yep.
And that gives them opportunity to abuse kids. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, the point I'm trying to make is this is like a national security interest, but it's even more important. It's the most precious thing that we have, which is our children and our youth and their safety. So you have two or three people, a small number of people in the Senate who are impeding the ability for a bill to pass that would seemingly protect children. Like, how can this possibly be happening?
And I think, like to your point, I'm like, does it have to, like, is it one of these things where it has to happen to you and your family for you to care? Like, is that how much we have to wait for, somebody's grandkid to be a victim of this? Like, so that they care? Like that's a terrible thing to think about. But I do work with a lot of people that have never had any sort of, tragedy life experience, right? And they have the best healthcare in the world. Like, it's like very bubble. It's in a bubble. There's just, I don't know if that's part of it. I think the stronghold is the donor base, right? And these are entities that give a lot of money. And what happens to you if you break that tie? It's almost like an experiment. I'm like, what would happen? Like, what would happen if Kim Ward went against the Catholic Church? Like, would she be struck by lightning tomorrow? No, I think actually like Pope Leo would be like, thank God, lady, like you got your shit together. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, do we need to invite him as a Senate guest? I would love for him. We pray at the beginning of every Senate session. And I can't stand it because it's like, if I like, I'm not a super religious person. I'm not Catholic, but like, I assure you, some people in there are going to need a lot more than the Senate prayer to get them, like it's wild, like hypocrisy. You know what I mean? It's just like this justified, like, I don't care and I don't need to care. Like, but then we're going to go pray and say everything's fine.
I don't think people realize how nefarious it is either, because in this issue, I mean, we had the support, right? We did mass polling across the Commonwealth. The average person was like, this is a no-brainer. How is this even not in law? We tilted towards the Senate's argument with the constitutionality. So we did a constitutional amendment and we had all the votes. And what people don't realize is how that was just a dress rehearsal, because then somewhere, somehow in the governor's office, the ballot question didn't make it. Like, how does that happen. You and I both know it doesn't happen by mistake, so they can do the whole dog and Shoney po, like, oh, well, we did vote. I did vote. And like, look, but then this clerical error came in. And then, so then the next round of constitutional amendments, which probably a lot of folks don't know, was that the Senate wasn't going to pass it unless it was attached to another constitutional bill that clearly the Democrats weren't going to support. And so there's this constant sportsmanship.
It's a weaponization of the issue. Right, exactly. Yes. Right. And the tie, I forgot about the tying. I sound like I forgot.
Because it's so much.
Right. This is the other piece, is attaching it to something bad, right? Yeah. And then you don't have the votes. And so that's beyond nefarious. That's just like intent. That just shows intent to just sabotage deliberately. And again, like, it's like I just thought about it, it's like, well, where is it now? So we actually did do, I think this kind of shows part of my purpose in this space. I think I exist to stop bad things from happening. It's what I've taken I've accepted the challenge and the role in this job. But Senator Costa did, I think, because their budget negotiations aren't going so well, or slower than anticipated. Mm-hmm. So he said, we're going to do this is really interesting, discharge petition, which is like one of the few maneuvers the minority party can use to try to get a bill a vote. Okay. And so it's never worked. It's just like we basically make the other side put up a vote saying they don't want that bill to come up for a vote. It's not technically a no vote, but whatever. So it's a statute of limitations bill. Okay. So he says this, and it's my bill. Like, and I'm just like, whatever. Like, I mean, I don't say whatever, but it's been my bill. So I'm not, I don't need to stand up and make a speech about it. And so then he came up to me later and was like, oh, I forgot that's your bill. I like, is that okay that we're doing this? And I'm like, yes, like, we should be doing this every session. Like like every year we should do this. But again, there is this, we're in the minority and we don't want to piss everybody off over there because, and you remember, Jet, like when we vote for the president of the Senate, my caucus is voting for a Republican, right? Mm-hmm. And there's been a couple times Senator Lindsey Williams and I have voted no. And everyone else votes yes. We've tried to change the Senate rules so that there's more ability of the minority party to bring up legislation for a vote or even get a hearing on a bill.
Yeah.
And we have Democrats that don't vote with us on those efforts because they're terrified of the retaliation of the majority party. And I can remember when our lines were redrawn and redistricting in 2022, it was like, you better not vote against Kim Ward. This is redistricting. And I'm like, I don't give a hoot. Like, this person, that was my no vote against her, was that she wouldn't take this issue up. So like, no, I'm not giving you unanimous historical, you're elected as the president of the Senate. You can go pound sand. Like, and that's the other barrier, is that there's a little bit of cowardice, right, on the Democratic side to push.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing, to be frank, right? Like, we're supposed to be, and I'm speaking politically, I don't even know either one of your political affiliations. In my mind, we're supposed to be the better party, right? Like, I'm like, we're supposed to be the ones that are fighting for people, and crickets.
Yeah. So where does that position your bill today? And are you telling me there's a chance? For the 157th
time. Meme of like Jim Carrey from Dumb
exactly.
It's a regular in our group chat in my office.
Yep.
I mean, I have a meeting today about my budget priorities right after this, and this is on my list of my budget priorities never change. I mean, look at this. We've dramatically underfunded rape crisis and domestic violence. It's embarrassing.
Yes.
Embarrassing. And so that's my priority every year. So another thing is just, can we please just make this issue a budget issue? Like, make it move with it. Just do it. I don't have pride in ownership. I'm not naive to think that a bill with my name on it will ever be passed in this legislature. And guess what? I don't care.
Yeah.
We've gotten a lot of stuff done. We've amended our bills into other things. The no consent in custody with law enforcement that got in, and that was through an amendment. It was, a Katie Muth bill, but it got it. I don't care. Guess what? Now that can't happen here. So I think there's always a way. It's just
the will.
Yeah, right. And so I think that I always think there's a chance, because I think that if the people are engaged and putting pressure, then there's always a chance. I mean, I think that it's just a matter of awareness, right? And so I have a little bigger audience right now since all this data center stuff. So I just need to up my game and say, in addition to this, here's our to-do list, right? And just, because again, to your earlier point, people think this is already done.
Yep. Yeah.
The average person would be like, what? Why? Who? What? Like, and just like anything else that's common sense that doesn't exist in Pennsylvania, it's like, wait, we don't do this? Nope, we do not.
Yeah.
And so that's an opportunity to bring awareness, and it's an election year.
I'll never forget when, and this is one of the positive things that happened in, I guess it was 2018 or whenever the grand jury report came out related to the Catholic Church. There were guys who were identified in those files who were either still clergy members, or who were there. I remember there was a guy who was serving as like a psychologist or a mental health therapist in Western Pennsylvania. And the grand jury report came out, a news agency got a hold of it, and they went to his place of work and they found him, and he was like counseling like teenage boys. I mean, that if we pass this window, we are going to expose all those people and protect thousands of kids.
Yes.
So the question becomes, why are we not doing it? Okay. Like, what is the pretext? I know we've talked about the real reason, which is their special interests. What is the pretext that we get as to why they won't do this? You mentioned constitutionality, right? And then you wisely raised the issue. That's for the courts to decide. Is there any other pretext? Are there any other arguments that one can come up with as to why we shouldn't pass a bill of this nature?
I'm going to give you my opinion. Do you ever ask yourself, like, why you still have a job in this space? Like, why does it still happen? Why does this stuff still happen, right? Like, why have we not stopped child sex abuse? Why is it still so prevalent? And I think that we have to be honest with ourselves. And I had this conversation actually with Milton Hershey's nephew, who came and visited me about a whole bunch of corporate pension investment things, because I serve on a pension board. Turns out he was an expert witness for the Boy Scout case. Mm-hmm. He had been not assaulted, but groomed, but thankfully not, a victim of actual physical abuse. But he said to me, "Don't you get it? There are people that are in these positions of power that are a part of this problem," and so that took me weeks to process that, right? And just that, I think there's a hesitation there that, and again, I'm not Catholic, but my grandmother was, but like, where, are you going to expose the family friend that was the priest the whole time, or like these types of things? And I know this from conversations about some of the people that were previously in the Senate that are of Catholic religion, who had Catholic Church, officials, we'll call them, that have since been arrested. Mm-hmm. I was told some of them should have been arrested very soon. It took quite longer. So to your point, this isn't like over. And I don't think I think maybe it's probably more hidden, right? Because people are more aware of it. I don't think the abuse has stopped.
No, it's the protection. I mean, right. That's why I lost my job, was 1000% exposing senators and House reps for sexual abuse. And one call I will never forget, I was in a hotel in Philadelphia attending an event, And it was Joe Scarnati's office, not him, but someone from his office. And his own priest was one of the offenders.
Okay,
and
thank you. Because I was like, I don't know how far.
I'm gonna go. I'll go there. They begged me to the degree that they said, "We'll drop the ethics investigation if you don't name his priest."
Mm-hmm.
Like those are the kind of conversations, and like you said, it's not even nefarious; it's just literally criminal intent. Like it's intent to protect these people who are actively engaged in child sexual abuse, and that's the most disturbing part of it all. True.
And like, look where we're at right now. Like, look, I mean, I'm just going to say this because it's like obvious. Is like, there's a market, right, for sex trafficking for a reason. There's a reason that there's a thing called the Epstein files. Like these aren't isolated things, right? They're all an interconnected, warped network of people that believe that they are entitled to do these things. Like, that's just fact. Like they believe that they are entitled to do these things, and whether they're legal or not, right? Like that's not even a thought in their mind. And so I think that you taught me, especially Jen, that the interconnections of people goes way deeper than I. I mean, it's not like I thought it was impossible, but it's a reality. And so I think the other piece, Ben, is that who else gets exposed along the way probably is a pretty wide swath of individuals that I work with, I don't know,
even if it's just financial ties, right? They're not actually the ones committing the
or that they knew about it and did nothing.
Exactly.
Right? There's that group of people that know, but choose not to do anything. And it's like, well, that's that's just as bad. Right.
I don't think many people know the depths of the Epstein story.
No,
I know that there were powerful private individuals who he was entertaining, but they don't realize that the government gave Epstein like a backdoor deal.
Yep.
And like, why did they do that? Obviously, Epstein had, and we had another guest on, Jennifer Freeman, who represented survivors in that case. I mean, obviously, Epstein was doing stuff for the government, and people in positions of authority owed him favors, so much so that they overlooked a proper and appropriate prosecution of him. So I think when the people of Pennsylvania look at this bill, they need to understand that this is like an Epstein protection bill. And this is going to serve to keep people like Epstein sort of in the shadows.
Yeah. And the network that he created, right? Yeah. Like it wasn't just him. I mean, there's a whole network, and I think you're 100% right that by allowing this to not get done, your time you know what I mean? Like it's just like these are it's enabling the same thing. So arguably, you could say that about Democrats who aren't making this a priority. If you're same thing, it's not really party specific, right? It's
I mean, and Lisa Baker, right? She's a Republican and Senate leadership, and she's totally in favor of this.
I think she
have a moral compass.
I think she got burned spending some of her political capital on this issue. But I know that she did it for the right reasons, and that's a really hard find. So she is an ally in this space. I just, she can't do it alone, right? Like, so but it's good that we have her. It's just how do you leverage just one of them?
Yeah.
It's a tricky. Again, she's there with us on principle and morality, but like, there's a lot of internal fighting in that caucus, I'm told, about who should be in leadership moving forward. And things like that, and issues with other special interests. So it's kind of a moment of chaos. But my thought is people should be making it an election issue, and that whoever has the majority should be doing this. And if the majority should change in the Senate, then we should be doing it on day one.
Yep. Agreed. I feel like we could talk to you for hours. And I don't want to keep you from this very important budget meeting, especially if it could lead to even an inch of progress in our statute of limitations movement. So, good luck with that. just thank you. Thank you for being an honest broker. Thank you for being a voice for victims that doesn't waver or bend and tilt in any way towards any type of financial interest. It's good to know that there are some of you in there. And I know it's a very, very tiny, minuscule amount. So I appreciate the emotional toll that can also have. So just thank you so much. I know that we notice it, survivors notice it. Your work is not going unnoticed, and we're just forever grateful. And we're here to support you in any way that we can.
Don't give up, Senator.
Yeah, I will not. I'm not a quitter. And thank you both, because you also hold a really important role in the space of making this this happen, and the support you've given survivors. So I appreciate both of you, because it's a lot, right? It's not, you could be doing other things and making a lot more money, but you're doing the things that I think matter, right? And you're part of that fight. So I just want to say thank you to both of you.
Thank you. Well, thank you again for listening to Justice Interrupted. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe, share the episode with a friend, continue supporting survivor-centered advocacy in your own communities. Maybe that is by calling your representative or your senator in Pennsylvania today, or whatever state you're in if you don't have this reform, to tell them to move the needle on this and protect children first. Until then, take care of yourself and each other. Thanks for joining us on Justice Interrupted.
If this episode moved you, informed you, or gave you hope, please share it.
And don't forget to follow, rate, and review the show wherever you're listening.
For more resources, links, and ways to take action, check out the show notes.
Until next time,
keep speaking up, keep fighting for justice.